So, before the Christmas break, actually, somebody requested to talk about right speech. So I thought I will talk about that. And it's quite a big subject in the sense there are lots and lots of discourses given by the Buddha about right speech. So it's quite an important thing. And I have also spoken about speech and skillful speech during various other Dhamma discourses too. But it is an important subject. As I have also mentioned before, speech can be quite a powerful thing in a good way and a bad way. Like, when you listen to good things, even like a Dhamma talk, or like, listen to the Dhamma, to wise advice and coming from a good place, from a good person, it can change your life. Sometimes I hear Ajahn Brahm says, so some people's lives have been saved just by listening to a Dhamma talk, right? So speech can be very powerful, but in the same way, the opposite is also true. Like, because of speech, somebody could also take their life or feel really, really down, depressed, go even mad. Yeah, that speech is a very powerful thing. And speech comes out so quickly as well. It is quite habitual. Yeah, sometimes we speak so fast out of habit. So speech habits are also very difficult. Once I was on a highway, I saw a graffiti saying, bombs don't necessarily kill people, but speech or words can. And that's true, right? Even one word can sometimes be really painful. When you heard it at the wrong time, wrong place, by the wrong person, it can be really, really hurtful, very damaging as well. And I myself, I'm not sure whether I am qualified to give a Dhamma talk on this because I myself am working on this. Yeah, right speech, good way of skillful speech. There's a long way to go to refine this. So I too am on this process of learning and becoming hopefully better slowly, slowly. But in the meantime, we can still talk about the Buddha's advice and try. Each time we talk about it, each time we make it current, it's a good opportunity to recondition ourselves, right? So, this is a good topic we need to talk many times. And also, when you look at the sufferings in your life, like whatever forms of suffering that we have, right? One of the biggest forms of suffering come from our relationships with other people, whether it is family, people at work, people we meet on the train, whatever it is. Sometimes it is these interpersonal relationships that cause the most pain in our life, sometimes much more than physical illness or old age or even death. Sometimes words, speech and communication can be quite difficult and a big part of our life. So, and we also make a lot of karma, good and bad, depending on whether you are skillful or unskillful in speech, right? So, therefore, it is really important, and we can't do without speech. We need to communicate, we need to express ourselves. So, right speech doesn't mean that you're silent as well, right? There's time to speak, and also, the wrong kind of silence. Sometimes you hear, right? Somebody give you a silent treatment, right? Not responding, not speaking is also very painful, right? So we have to be sensitive. So it includes the right way of expressing and how do you do that? So to begin with, I just want to give you the basic definition according to the Noble Eightfold Path when it is called right speech, what it includes. So right in speech includes refraining from lying. So definitely saying lies is wrong speech. Harsh speech, that means speaking in a way that is very hurtful. Yeah, really, swearing or really rough words and spoken with a rough tone of voice, like scolding, in a way that is rude and harsh. So that is the second one. Refraining from that is right speech. So the third one is speak in a way that it is divisive, right? So you create disharmony, you split people up, you go and tell somebody else's weaknesses and all these things to another person in a way with the intention of breaking their relationship, breaking the harmony, yeah, and creating disharmony. So that kind of speech is also unskillful. And then idle chatter, and that is just speaking about all kinds of things that are of no benefit to anybody. And this is a lot of our day-to-day speech. Talk about the movie stars, talking about music, politics, cricket or sport, about all these things, about finances. I don't know, lots of these things that we end up talking about that are not necessarily beneficial, but for the sake of entertainment or just killing time. It's also just a load of chat. And why is that unskillful? Because sometimes, isn't that the case? Because you just cracked a joke and somebody took it the wrong way and got really upset. This happens, right? You were only joking. Or you told like a funny story, but somebody took it the wrong way. So it can lead to difficulty, but also as a meditator, when we've engaged in this kind of very empty, hollow, idle chatter, that sort of reverberates. Like, there's an echo of that. And when you want to meditate, when you want to make your mind peaceful and quiet, it is difficult if you engage in this kind of very useless, ongoing chatter the whole time. That is difficult. That's why idle chatter is also wrong speech. So what is then right speech is speech that is truthful, right? Truths. And the speech that is very gentle, kind, speech that goes to the heart. Yeah, beautiful, isn't it? Even the listening to it, a speech, words that are spoken that goes to your heart, gentle, pleasing, uplifting, inspiring, kind. Yeah, this kind of speech, not harsh speech, but that kind of speech. And there are people who speak like that in the world. They're not very common, but not all that uncommon. But when you are in the presence of these kind of people, you want to like stay there forever with these people, right? When they speak so beautifully, so kindly, that it really goes to your heart. You feel their love, their affection, their kindness, their care as they speak. Even if they have to tell you something that is difficult, but because they say it in such a way that you want to listen to it. Yeah, you listen. So it's really beautiful to be able to develop that skill. Yeah, I'm still learning, but this is a really beautiful aspiration to have. Yeah. And also, hanging around these people is one of the best ways to learn to speak in that way. Yeah, sometimes by theory, by knowing it, it's hard to get because speech is habit, it's conditioned. So when you do have people who have this kind of really beautiful ways of speaking, it is nice to hang around with these people. But there are two different categories of people. There are some people who are quite deceptive, yeah? When they have ulterior motivations, they want something done, they want to be in your good books, or they want to give a good impression, sometimes they act this. So, and they speak so sweetly, and it's like honey pouring out of their mouth, but they have kind of sometimes unwholesome intentions behind it. So that kind of speech is still not wholesome speech. Even though it sounds nice, it might be gentle, but it is where it's coming from is also very important. So if it is truly coming from a generous heart, from a straightforward, truthful place, yeah, from a place where you want to help, to be kind, to support, not any, very personal, very selfish desires in there, truly coming in an open, beautiful way, then it is really nice. So it is important to really distinguish this as well, because sometimes we get fooled by such people and they stab you at the back later. Yeah, so this is kind of sometimes passive aggressive people can also have this kind of speech. They'll be very sweet to you in your face, but then they turn around and do something. So we have to be careful when we select who is a good kind doing the right speech. So to have that awareness, and for us also not to speak in that way, right? Being honest in the way that you deliver, express yourself is important. It is that honesty, yeah. But we can be gentle in a good way. So, and then, of course, instead of dividing people, instead of divisive speech, speech that unite people, bring people together. So you go and tell somebody who's sort of upset with another person, tell maybe, other good things that this person may have done, or the other good things they have said about you. So in a way, the person feels like they want to forgive, they want to make up, they want to get back together. Instead of separating people, speak in a way you bring people together, create harmony. Yeah, so beautiful when you see that, when people try to do this. Yeah, really, really nice. And in place of this idle chatter. So, idle chatter, there are about 32 types of speech. Unfortunately, I didn't prepare the sutta, but if you write into the 32 types of unskillful speech, you will find it. And also, there are 10 types, 10 topics that are to be spoken when you are with somebody. So 32 types include what I mentioned before, like talk about the kings, the politics, the music, the actors, the actresses, the movies, the places you can travel, sport, food, all of these things. It is also called the speech at the well. Like when people go to the well to get water, then they get together. And that is what or the speech at the tea room in the office. Yeah, all these kinds of pretty much useless kind of chatter, gossip, all of that. Yeah, that is the 32 types of this 32 that to be ignored and avoided ideally. But there are 10 types of speech that are to be spoken. I'm really, really sorry that I didn't prepare. I should have. I'm sorry. I'll try another time to bring up the actual sutta, which describes these 32 of unskillful speech and the 10 kinds of skillful speech. So this 10 kind of skillful speech includes speech that is called apicchakata, that is talk about simplicity, yeah, living a simple life, not a life full of things, full of accumulating things, but living a simple life. Apicchakata. Santuttikata, that is talk about being contented, yeah, not discontent. Talk like in a way that you feel this is good enough, what I have is good enough. This is helpful, and not having too much desire, but instead talk about contentment. Paviveka Katha, that is talk about, being in seclusion, being quiet, being a meditation, these kinds of stuff. Yeah, being in a peaceful place, going on retreat, these kinds of speech. So it encourages other people in the good way, because speech is powerful. As I said, it conditions people. So when you talk about living in about simplicity, you get inspired yourself to live simply, right? Like even people are talking about all this global warming, the environmental disasters, the damage people are doing, all of these things. But where is it coming from? Consumerism, isn't it? All these our desires and wanting to have more and more and more things is what creates so much harm to the environment, change the climate. So just by engaging in living a simple life, about simplicity itself is helping to reduce our carbon footage even. Yeah, so it's quite beautiful. It's inspiring to talk about living simple, to live a life with contentment, because contentment, santutti paramang dhanang, the Buddha says, contentment is the highest wealth. Yeah. So when you're contented, you don't need anything more in your life. So beautiful. Yeah, and Paviveka going on retreat, doing meditation, being at a peaceful place, going to Santi Forest Monastery, right? It's a really peaceful place. Talk about this, yeah. And then Asansagga Katha. That is, some people might not like this, but we are always constantly talking about wanting to be together, catching up for a coffee. I mean, nothing wrong with that, but the attachments grow, right? When you want to constantly be with people, get together to unite, talking about always uniting, missing each other, and can't be, and that is difficult. So, Asansagakata means living, disentangled, living independently, living a bit alone and aloof, which is quite peaceful, quite nice, yeah? Doesn't mean that you ignore your family and friends completely, but not constantly trying to always be with them, always on the phone, always on the social media, always messaging and being together. It is a problem. So the Buddha's advice is to talk about not doing that. Yeah. So asansagga kata. Then talk about virtue, living a virtuous life, the benefits of being a good person, right? A virtue in a nutshell is being good feels good. Yeah, so talk about living a moral life, the benefits of it, how wonderful it is when you live a beautiful, moral, meaningful life. So, sila kata. Then samadhi kata, so the meditation proper, like stillness, about the jhanas, deep meditations, things like that. Virya arambhaka kata, that is, um, about energy, arousing effort and energy to practice the spiritual path, how to find time, how to get that energy, encouraging each other in a way to inspire each other to do the practice, this kind of talk, yeah. Virya Arambhaka. So, how to arouse that energy, the effort to get started to do the wholesome thing. So, energy to do wholesome. Yeah. So, Virya Arambhaka Kata. And then talking about the insights. Yeah. Whatever insights you have during deep meditation and sharing those insights is really beautiful. So, I'm missing one of them, but I think I've spoken 9 out of 10 by memory. But anyway, so these are the kind of very skillful kind of speech. If you get together, the Buddha says, either talk any one of those 10 topics or a topic on the Dhamma, or if not, remain silent. This is what is called noble silence. Yeah, when you are in together with people, this is his recommendation. Either talk about the Dhamma or encourage somebody else to talk about the Dhamma or talk about any one of these 10 topics which are all related to Dhamma, inspiring your mind into peace, into disentanglement, into contentment, not accumulating, rather being, giving things up, dispassion, not passion, things like that. Yeah, in accordance with the Dhamma, about meditation, about practice, that kind of thing. So that is one aspect, what is to be spoken and what is not to be spoken. So right speech and wrong speech. So, and then it goes into when it comes to speech, there is also if you want to look up in Anguttara Nikaya, that is numerical discourses, chapter 3, I think sutta number 28. Let me just see that one. It's a short sutta called Speech Like Dung. Yeah, speech like dung. Okay, so there are 3 bhikkhus. There are 3 kinds of persons found existing in the world. What 3? The one whose speech is like dung, the one whose speech is like flowers, and the one whose speech is like honey. Yeah. So the first category. And what bhikkhus is this person whose speech is like dung? Here, if he is summoned to a council, to an assembly, to his relatives' presence, to his guild, or to the court, and questioned as a witness thus, So, good man, tell what you know. Then, not knowing, this person says, I know. Or, or knowing, he says, I do not know. Not seeing, he says, I see. Or seeing, he says, I do not see. Thus, he consciously speaks falsehood for his own ends or for another's ends or for something trifling worldly end. This is called the person whose speech is like dung. So essentially somebody who lies for some kind of trivial benefit or for whatever reason. And what is the person whose speech is like flowers? Here, if he is summoned to a council, to an assembly, to his relatives' presence, to his guild, or to the court, and questioned as a witness thus, so good man, tell what you know. Then, not knowing, this person says, I do not know. Or knowing, he says, I know. Not seeing, he says, I do not see. Or seeing, he says, I see. He does not consciously speak falsehood for his own ends or for others' ends or for the trifling worldly ends. So this is somebody who speaks truthfully. And what is the person whose speech is like honey? Here, some person having abandoned harsh speech abstains from harsh speech. He speaks such words as are gentle, pleasing to the ear, lovable as go to the heart, are courteous, desired by many, and agreeable to many. This is the person whose speech is like honey. Beautiful, isn't it? So this is just to back up what I was saying before. So that is in Anguttara Nikaya, chapter 3, sutta number 28. So, and the next thing, there's so much to be said. Let's see how we go with time. And the other thing about speech, when it comes to having a skillful conversation, right? To have a successful communication, successful way of expressing yourself to somebody, yeah? And the Buddha says when you have to speak, consider 5 things. And this comes up in Majjhima Nikaya, that is the middle length discourses, Sutta number 21 called Kakachupama Sutta. This one I'm not going to read out, it's an extract. I'm going to just say by memory the section on this speech. And this is especially important if you have to discuss something difficult or you have to talk to somebody who is a bit difficult to speak to. This is this kind of especially important to consider, but always it is important. Whenever you need to speak to somebody, it is always good to consider these 5 things. What is the first thing? Knowing the right time. But when the Buddha says right time, it includes actually time and place. Yeah, time includes the place. So how do you know what is the right time to speak about this thing? There are many things, but some things that comes to my mind is that, especially with yourself, before you speak, before you have this conversation, see, are you coming? How are your emotions? Are you emotionally triggered? Yeah. Are you speaking with negative mindsets? Are you speaking with ill will, negativity, agitation, fear, that kind of states? Are you triggered by emotion? If you are really emotionally triggered with negative emotions, that is not the right time to speak. Also, if you are speaking impulsively, so especially with emotions, you get impulsive speech. So impulsive speech is often gets you into trouble because you are acting too quickly without having investigated, without having settled your feelings, without allowing some wisdom to come up to analyze the situation and find a skillful way to express yourself. Impulsive speech is not the right time. So if you feel very, impulsive need to speak up, try and see whether you can restrain yourself. This is really, really hard But trying is very, very important, because those are the times we have made quite many big mistakes. Yeah, and then to make up is so much more work. Yeah, once we have destroyed a relationship because of that impulsive speech, to make up is so hard. Yeah, you can even lose trust. Yeah, give so much heartache, so much difficulty, so much bad come as well. So impulsive speech, finding ways to deal with it. I think if you look up in the internet, there are probably many, many different ways of dealing with this. This is not part of the Buddha's instructions of how to deal, but there are modern ways that you can use to deal with impulsive speech and impulsive actions. So yeah, checking your emotions, so taking and settling it down is really important. But also about the other person. Yeah, see whether the other person, how are they, by even if you don't, I mean, most people don't have the ability to read another person's mind, right? Unless you are a deep meditator with psychic abilities, it's not possible. But we can read body language. We definitely can see very easily whether somebody is in a bad mood. Yeah, whether they're angry, whether they're irritated, agitated, they're sad, whether they're anxious, whether they're having panic, whether they're full of desires or whatever, whether they're confused. We can see that if you observe, or whether they're really, really tired. Yeah. If you know that this person hasn't eaten, they're really hungry, they haven't had a good night's sleep, all of these things, yeah, you can take into consideration. If you notice that, that is not the right time to bring up this very delicate issue, that this difficult thing. So be smart, right? Sometimes you might be so wanting to talk about this, so want to get it out of your heart, but it's going to have a really bad repercussion if you're not patient. So we have to be patient, right? We have to be patient. So knowing the right time. And sometimes the right time could be, especially when it comes to giving advice to somebody. Yeah. So sometimes we have to wait and see when until they're ready. Sometimes you give advice a bit too early and they're not ready to listen. But you can see some circumstances coming together, some conditions coming together, and then you can see the person is actually ready. Even the person is actually asking you, almost looking up to you for advice. And that is a good time. Yeah, when somebody asks your advice, it's the best time to give advice rather than you proactively trying to give advice. Very often people don't listen. At least ask, would you like, may I offer you something? Is it okay for me to say something about this? At least asking for that permission is important rather than freely, readily, just completely push it onto somebody. Yeah. And then they don't take. So right time also requires quite a lot of wisdom. So these are some of the things that come into my mind about right time. But also, like, you don't go and criticize somebody in front of their colleagues, in front of their family, in public, all of these things. So place matters where you're going to have this conversation. It is really important, the environment that you're going to be in. Yeah, whether it's a noisy place, it's already a stressful place, or, all of these matter. So we have to be really, really smart in finding the right time and right place. It can take time, but it is going to be effective if you have that. If you don't consider this, sometimes you may communicate, it might even turn out to be counterproductive and go really in the wrong way. So time and place is really important. The second thing to consider is to see whether what you're going to communicate, is that true? Because there's a lot of information that you hear that is misinformation, disinformation. So verify. If somebody told you such and such person did such and such a thing, just don't go and repeat it, right? Find out, is that true? Did it really happen? Yeah. Is this really? So verifying and find out, is this true? So it is important. So the speech has to be also truthful. The third thing to consider is it beneficial? Yeah, sometimes, we just speak for the sake of saying things. Sometimes we are also speaking it in a way that is actually unbeneficial because you want to say, now there is no benefit, it's already too late, it has passed. By talking about it, it's not going to do anything useful. Yeah, but still, our own ego wants to just expressing, just so the other time you did this and it was not that nice or something like that. Yeah, sometimes it is helpful to say if it was going to have an effect, and it's also not the way that you say it. You have a different way of saying it. But so is there benefit in communicating this? Or whether it has already passed and too late, now there is no point in talking about it. So find out whether what you're going to communicate, is it beneficial? If it is beneficial, then that's good. So time and place, is it true? Third one, is it beneficial? Fourth one, how are you going to say it? A gentle way of delivery. So non-violent communication, it is called in the modern language. And there's so much you can read up online and learn. There's books written about it. And this is incredibly, incredibly important. Non-violent communication. Yeah. Also non-manipulative communication. So it's really hard. Even I am learning. In fact, a few weeks back, we had a discussion at the monastery with a few people who were here, and one of the persons was an English teacher. Yeah. And for me, English is the second, language. So I still don't have a lot of emotional connection to certain words and certain phrasing and sentence structures. So it was really interesting, even what he said. He said, he didn't like when his boss asked him, would you would you like to do this? Yeah. Let's say his name was John. John, would you like to do this? And he said that this is kind of manipulative speech. I thought that was very sweet. Would you like to do this? I thought it was a really nice way of saying it. He said, no, that's manipulative. That's like, would you like to? He said, I don't like to do it, but do you want me to do it? Yeah. So then he said, if it is the boss asking you to do something, or it would be helpful for me, can you please do this? Can you help me with this when you have time? Or do you have time to do this? Would you mind doing this or something like that, rather than would you like to do it? So I can't even pick the difference, yeah. But now having pointed out, I realize, oh, speech can be refined in so many ways. So it takes a while, especially if English is not your first language. It takes a while to make an emotional connection to the usage of different words and how it comes, what comes first and what comes after. All of these things matter. And for some people, they are quite sensitive to the words. Yeah. So it is really important. And we can't always be perfect. We can only try our best. So I'm really sometimes very afraid to even give Dhamma talks because I'm sure I may be annoying some people by the way I'm delivering it. But what can I do? I can only do my best, not I can't do my better than best. So I am trying myself. But this is important. Yeah, some people get hurt. So, and we can't do much, but we can try. So, yeah, so non-violent communication, non-manipulative communication. So all that goes into that gentle. So even if you want to criticize somebody, I mean, constructive criticism can be helpful, right? So it is done in the right way, it is helpful. So how do you do it? It's the way you say it, instead of saying you're really bad, the way you speak is so terrible, disgusting, it is very hurtful for many people. You victimize the other person. It's really, really hurtful, right? But you can still communicate to the other person as a friend, so at least they don't continue this habit and get into so much trouble out of your care to this person, because the person probably is oblivious to how they're speaking. But you can point it out at the right time in a good way. Sometimes when you speak in this way, it could be, difficult for some people. How about, try and see, or something like this, you say it in a not way of victimizing the person, rather you say, I can see maybe, this is condition, but, this is what it is. I mean, I'm not skillful myself to tell too many examples, but you'll have to learn about it. And I can only say and encourage you to learn about nonviolent speech. It is really, really important because in the modern world, especially, there's so much violent speech going on, especially with social media and all of these things. I think people, even suicide, I think there are stories because of bullying that is happening in social media, and the way of speech and the way that people, talk about people and talk to people. So it is really, really important. So again, to remind, time and place, is it truth, is it beneficial, and gentle delivery, yeah, non-violent delivery. And the last one, speech that is coming from a heart with love and affection, with metta, yeah, loving kindness. So if you can't think about all other four things, how to do, and it's too complicated, make one thing and everything will be okay. Make your heart good before you open your mouth, if you can. Yeah. If your heart is good, if your heart is in the right place, full of affection, full of kindness, have enough joy, then guaranteed your speech will be pretty good. But if you even try to do all the other four things, but if your heart is not in the good place, then the speech may not come out and it might be difficult. So this is really important. And then you would wonder, how can I have that to this difficult person? How can I have affection and loving kindness to this really bully that, or the difficult person I have in my life that I have to communicate, or even somebody who is kind of a bit abusive, even. Yeah. So then sometimes you have to have somebody else with you, and all of those things you can take into consideration. But then many, many, many people in the world, you know, there are some good qualities in these people. So if at all possible, try and see some of the good qualities of the person. No, don't only just focus on their bad and have that kind of difficulty in your heart, so then you can't communicate. So if you really have to communicate, then try and see whether you can build up a bit of kindness. And if not, at least some compassion, seeing that this person is really, heading in the wrong direction because of their really difficult, unskillful behavior. Try and see whether you can build up at least some compassion, and then try and see whether you can speak. So these are complicated things, but this is the 5 things to consider before communication. So really interesting, isn't it? There's so much to be said, so many places where we can go wrong with our speech. Yeah. So that's that. And then there's so much actually. And there is another place. Where was that? Covert speech and overt speech. Before that, let me just talk about this. This is now from Majjhima Nikaya, middle length discourses again. Sutta number 58, called to Prince Abhaya. So I'm just reading an extract. So here the Buddha goes to visit a prince called Abhaya. And this prince invites the Buddha for the lunch, for the meal. And after the meal is over, he sits down to one side and asks a question to the Buddha. So this is the prince speaking now to the Buddha. Venerable Sir, would a Tathagata is another word for the Buddha, would a Tathagata or the Buddha utter such speech as would be unwelcome and disagreeable to others? Very interesting question, right? The prince is asking the Buddha whether the Buddha would speak things that are unwelcome and disagreeable to the others. Are you interested to know the Buddha's answer? Interesting question, right? So the Buddha says, there is no one-sided answer to that, prince. Very good answer. No one-sided answer. Then, Venerable Sir, the Nigantas have lost in this. Okay, this is just because of whatever. Why do you say this, Prince? Then, Venerable Sir, the Nigantas have. Okay, let me just say, because if you didn't read the rest of the sutta, you will be lost here. Then, now on that occasion, so then the Buddha explains, like, now on that occasion, a young, tender infant was lying prone on Prince Abhaya's lap. So Prince Abhaya had a little baby, right? Then the Blessed One said to Prince Abhaya, "What do you think, Prince? If while you or your nurse were not attending to him, this child were to put a stick or a pebble in his mouth, what would you do to him?" So this is like something that common happens, like little babies sometimes put things that they shouldn't be putting in their mouths. "Venerable Sir, I would take it out. If I could not take it out at once, I would take his head in my left hand and crooking a finger of my right hand, I would take it out, even if it meant drawing blood. Why is this? Because I have compassion for the child, because they know if the child tries to swallow that stick or the pebble, the child might die, right? So because of that, I'm sure this may have happened when you were bringing up your children also, where you see and you suddenly have to take it out, and sometimes it's painful for the kid, but you have to do it because you have to take it out, otherwise the kid would die. So too, Prince, such peace as the Tathagata knows to be untrue, incorrect, and unbeneficial, and which is also unwelcome and disagreeable to others. Such speech the Tathagata does not utter. But such speech as the Tathagata knows to be true and correct, but unbeneficial, and which is also unwelcome and disagreeable to others, such speech the Tathagata does not utter. So something that is untrue, incorrect, unbeneficial, unwelcome, and disagreeable, the Buddha doesn't speak. Also, speech that is um, uh, true and correct, but unbeneficial. So that is speech that is true and correct, but unbeneficial and unwelcome and disagreeable. That too, the Tathagata does not speak. Such speech as the Tathagata knows to be true, correct, beneficial, but which is unwelcome and disagreeable to others. The Tathagata knows the time to use such speech. Such speech as the Tathagata knows to be untrue, incorrect, and unbeneficial, but which is welcome and agreeable to others. Such speech the Tathagata does not utter. Such speech as Tathagata knows to be true, correct, but unbeneficial, and which is welcome and agreeable to others. Such speech the Tathagata does not utter. Such speech as Tathagata knows to be true, correct, beneficial, ethical, and which is welcome and agreeable to others. The Tathagata knows the time to use such speech. Why is that? Because the Tathagata has compassion for beings. Quite a mouthful, but I hope you get the point. So, if it is true, correct, and beneficial, then knowing the right time and place, he would say, even if it is welcome, because sometimes some people don't want to hear the truths, don't want to hear, but the Tathagata knows this is beneficial to the person. Even it is not, welcome by the other person, out of compassion, he would speak. But if it is untrue, unbeneficial, and incorrect, the Tathagata would not speak, right? And of course, the speech that is correct, true, beneficial, agreeable, welcome, then such speech the Tathagata will definitely speak. So anyway, read this up and contemplate because it's quite a lot, but I'm sure you are getting what he's meaning. That means it's not that he only speaks, kind, good things. Sometimes he might have to admonish, yeah, and he gives admonishment to people. Yeah, and that is that kind of speech. I mean, nobody likes to be admonished, right? Nobody likes to be a bit not told off, but to be, pointed out your mistakes or your, things, but out of compassion to correct you to for your own good. The Tathagata would say that, point it out to you, but he will do it in a way that is still skillful at the right time, right place, in a good way, out of kindness to you. So this is the thing. So it's not that always he speaks sweetly. He can speak, he can admonish, he can tell you off, not in that same bad way, but in a good way. But it's how it's done is what he's saying. So it's kind of interesting, yeah. So this is again about speech. So there's a lot of different things and about speech, but I am going to stop here because it's a huge amount. So, and I invite people to ask questions. You can provide comments. You can give some anecdotes from your own life and some advice that you would like to share. Anything is welcome. So there was another sutta. I wonder which sutta was that. I think it is in the Aranya Vibhanga Sutta, that is Majjhima Nikaya Middle Discourses, Sutta number 139. And in there, it's also another very important type of speech. This is called covert speech and overt speech. I mean, I don't know myself exactly. When I heard, so I had to look it up. What does covert and overt speech means? So covert speech is that kind of speech that you talk behind somebody's back. That kind of speech, you go behind somebody's back and you speak. Overt speech is you like criticize and very sharply in public, in front, at somebody. That is overt speech. So both of those seems not right, right? To speak behind somebody's back and also to speak and criticize somebody in a sharp way. But is it always the case? Yeah. Is it always the case? Is it always bad to speak behind somebody's back? The Buddha says no. There are times, yeah, that talking behind somebody's back can be helpful, but it is in certain circumstances. For example, let's say like in the monastery, for example, you realize there is a fellow monastic who is getting into some kind of trouble, who's got some kind of problem or wrong view has come in, and they are trying to do some harm to themselves or something, and you are aware of it. Yeah, so then you might talked to the teacher, yeah, to the teacher, and you might say, I have come to realize this other monastic, this other person is about to get into some trouble. They're doing this kind of thing that is really unskillful. So I'm just letting you know, but you are letting it know out of kindness, out of benefit, and asking the teacher to give some advice to help the person. Yeah, that's the time. So in that kind of occasion, with that kind of good intention and done in the right way and to the right person, to offer support and stuff, then that is okay, so the Buddha says, but not otherwise. Not speaking behind the back is good, but there are these kind of very rare occasion, again, that is true, correct, beneficial, then that is okay to do this kind of talking behind the back. The other one is, criticizing sharply and, all that. Again, there could be this rare occasion. So again, it is about the time, knowing when is the right time and place to do it. And sometimes, you might have to still speak a bit sharply to get a point across or to stop somebody from doing something. Yeah, it happens. Sometimes you might have to speak, but as long as it's coming from a kind place, the person understands. Even if it is coming sharply, they can still feel the kindness and they can see that you are saying that, or it's like the constructive criticism. Yeah, so criticism is not always bad if it is done in the right way for your own benefit and you can make the person understand it, then it is also correct. And sometimes you have to bring things up for the person's well-being and benefit. So these are difficult, so we have to be careful. So not all covert and overt speech is wrong. The time, knowing the right time, right place, and the way to do it, it can be okay. But in most occasions, covert and overt speech is not recommended. Yeah. So also interesting. So speech is complicated. So it all goes down to your intention. Yeah. If you're coming truly from a kind place, a place of wanting to care, to be generous, to be supportive, to, offer, that kind of thing, and you're doing your very best and coming from a heart of loving kindness, and then you are doing your very best to do the right kind of speech. But you can see also how difficult it is, isn't it? Speech can be so difficult to master, to be a really, that you speak that nobody gets upset and nobody gets affected is so hard, really difficult, but it is good for us to try. Yeah, it is helpful, it is beneficial. So, yeah. All right, there is a question. Dear Aya, what might count as a good time to deliver things that are hard, difficult to hear? So I did mention a little bit, uh, but I will mention again. And as a good time is that you make sure that you're not talking impulsively, you are not talking at a time when both parties are emotional, you're not talking at a time that you are, hungry, tired, and in an environment that is really distracting and disturbing and stuff like that. So it is finding, bringing up some calm in your mind and see the other person has also calmed down, or bringing up that environment, right? So you either invite the person for a dinner, give them their favorite food, talk something nice first, create a good mood, yeah, create a good atmosphere, make them feel loved, cared for, and give some appreciation. It's called the sandwich method, yeah. So you do all of those things, and then when you feel that the person is sort of ready, then you take and deliver it in that kind of right kind of gentle, non-violent way of saying it. And after having said that, also you have to sandwich up with other good things too, so the person feels good. This is important, right? It is so hurtful, so difficult for us, especially when our loved ones say these things, because if it is somebody else, sometimes we can take it. But when our loved ones, say these things, it is high impact. Yeah, because you are emotionally connected, especially if it is your partner or your lover or whatever, it's difficult. But sometimes you have to communicate these things. So then you have to really find. So work is to be done. Yeah. Anyway, so okay, there have been times when we feel very guilty for having spoken unskillfully. Yeah, I am guilty of that too. Tell me about it. I know. Hopefully, it does not happen again. Yeah, with mindfulness. How do we overcome and recover from such situations? Very true, not to speak when emotional. Yes. So the thing is, whenever you realize that, right, looking back, when you realize that your speech has been unskillful, then when you are ready and when you feel that the other person is ready, it is really, really important to make time and to bring this up and ask for forgiveness, saying that I am really, really sorry if my unskillful speech was difficult, harmful, hurtful. I am truly sorry. Yeah, not justifying too much and saying, yes, what I did was unskillful and I am really sorry. Yeah, I hope I will not do it again. I will try my very best and I hope you can forgive me. And you can tell that you care about them, you have affection for them, and hopefully you didn't have intentions of hurting them, but this happened. So this is really, really important, not to just push these things in under the carpet and think that after time it will be all okay. It's normally not okay. These things still remain in people's heart all the way till they die. Yeah. So it is really important that we have to, these are difficult communications sometimes, but it is important to do that. And you forgive yourself by understanding, why was I unskillful? So very often unskillful speech happens when we have been tired, when we have been hungry, when we have been emotional, when we have been stressed, we have so many things going on, when we've been confused about something, or when we didn't have all the information that we should have had. So many things, and we spoke emotionally. I mean, we are also we are also imperfect people, right? We are not full arahants, fully enlightened beings. So we have to also understand, I'm also somebody, trying, but I miss, slip ups happen, backsliding happens. So it is conditioned. It is because of whatever the conditions that came, and that's why I was unskillful. So find out where and how the unskillful speech happened and take note of it. And we can look back into our life and you'll see patterns. You'll see patterns at times. When are the times that are much more prone for unskillful speech? Try and see whether you can avoid them, make other changes so that you can improve. Yeah. So these things, so many things. So forgiving oneself by understanding the conditionality of these things, you forgive. So then you have to let go and move on. So acknowledging it. So AFL code, yeah, acknowledge, forgive, and let go. Yeah, so from both sides. So this is really important. So many things came in the meantime. Okay. Then politics is not always an unskillful topic. Though on the list you mentioned, it can be. It depends. Ignorance of political dynamics in intersex, etc., can also be harmful. Appreciate the lovely talk. Thank you. But that was Buddha's advice, right? The Buddha did say, talking about politics, talking about kings and all of these things, is for a practitioner not necessarily very useful. Maybe, not. There may be helpful things about politics that are beneficial and true and correct and for some good purpose. But very many times, I suppose, when people talk about politics, is not that skillful. But anyway, that's directly from the Buddha. So that's what I shared. And then this means we have to be very mindful all the time, isn't it? Well, being mindful all the time is not really possible unless you are a perfectly enlightened being. But of course, we can try to be. So, this is the whole reason why every Dhamma talk, I think I can't finish any Dhamma talk without saying something to this effect. That is, that taking care of your mental and physical energy. If anything that you get out of all the Dhamma talks you listen, if you get this one right, all of your spiritual path and all of the rest will be okay. And that is to take care of yourself, and that is your well being, right? Mental energy. and physical energy. When you have good mental and physical energy, mindfulness will be up. But otherwise, if you try to force mindful, try to be mindful, be mindful, be mindful, you're going to really stress out and become very difficult person to be with. So yes, mindfulness is necessary, but done in the right way, which means that you have time to rest, you meditate, you build up and become mindful. Yes, being mindful is important, but also creating good habits, because speech is habit, right? So it's like a cricket game or any kind of sports, like, that's why it's called practice, right? During the practice, you do over and over and over again the right ways of doing. But when you're in the action, sometimes you're not mindful. It's not mindfully somebody did this kind of hit or that kind of movement in the sport. It just happens. So speech is kind of like that. So you have to also practice good speech habits. So mindfully and carefully, gently, and practice good ways. And over a period of time, it changes. So speech is also trained by habit as well. So yeah, mindfulness and also right kind of training, speech habits is helpful. So that's why. And what I learned, because I have a long way to go, I've had really difficult, bad speech habits all my life. Conditioned, yeah, these are conditioned from the past, but whatever it is, the most skillful way was, I mean, I've looked up internet, I've read everything, all these things about right speech. What can I do? What can I do? I used to hang around people who have good speech, good ways of delivery, good sentence structures, whatever it is. If you can hang around, you talk, because we just imbue, yeah. Whoever we hang around with, we all don't even realize we start speaking like these people without even knowing. This is how conditioned our speech is. So that is why, our speech. So also to forgive yourself, because sometimes if your speech is not skillful, you can look around like, who did you speak? So it's that's what happens. So hanging around people with good speech is a really fast and a good way to train your speech habits. So there is Thich Nhat Hanh's book, The Art of Communicating. Oh, I didn't know about that. I found very good on this topic. Is it freely available? If so, can you please send it to me? If not, well, can I borrow it? Right speech is not spoken about enough in Dhamma talks, I think. Thank you so much. Oh, thank you. Well, I have to repeat again and again just for giving a Dhamma talk for myself every time. We can do from time to time talk about speech, because there's so much to cover. Yeah. Okay, and he says, my brother passed away last week. He was on life-sustaining machine, but his wife and daughter did not want to tell him the bad news, because didn't want him to worry. Hence, we siblings and everyone didn't have chance to say goodbye. What is the right time and place for such a talk? Well, the thing is, I think what they did was right in one way, because it is important that he passes away in a peaceful way, if that was the right thing to do. But you can always say your goodbyes in your mind, yeah, because the person, as soon as they pass away, also their spirit will be still around. This is normal. Yeah, they're just a little bit around. It is contactable. Yeah, so in your mind you can say. So more than the goodbye, it is important the person departs in a peaceful, good way. So rather than goodbye speech at a time when somebody is facing death, it is important that you have skillful speech rather than going and saying goodbye and speaking in a way I'm not sure that attachment comes up. Instead, you talk about, the good things the person has done, the good times, skillful things, beautiful things that uplifts and inspires the person's mind. That's the best kind of goodbye speech. But of course, if you had things to ask for forgiveness, that was important. But if you didn't get to do that before they pass away, you can still do it now. It's only a week ago, right? So it's still enough time. Even now in your mind, you can bring the person up and say and ask for forgiveness. And also you can forgive them, because this is the other important thing to do. But ideally, don't wait till they are in their deathbed. That is why it is so important that we bring up that idea of death, our own death. Death can happen anytime. Are you ready to die tonight? Yeah, because you are not ready to die if you haven't asked for forgiveness and forgiven other people. So don't leave it till late, until somebody's in the deathbed. Do it straight away, as soon as possible, every time, so you are ready to die. But if it wasn't possible, it's still not late. So don't worry about it. You can still do it. Yeah, so do that. But don't worry about other goodbyes. And whatever you need to say, you can still say it in your mind, and the person will hear it and know it very likely. So yeah. Well, yeah, it is probably difficult, but it is a difficult situation. So very important, not our side. We have to think about the person who is leaving. Because for us, we only lost one person. For the one who's departing, all of us died for them in one go. So it's quite difficult for them. The person dying, like, all the family died on them in one go. Whereas for us, we only lost one person. And we are still alive here. They are going into this unknown place. So to let them go in a good way, peaceful way, is our priority. So that's how I understand it. So I'm sorry to hear about this. And if you want to have a chat, come to the monastery. And if you want to do a forgiveness ceremony, we can do that next time you're here. And we can share merits. We can do many things with the passing away relative. Okay. And there's another question. How do we practice speech with those who are verbally abusive, irrational, shouting? Yes, this is a difficult. So thank you, Tama. Yeah, so well, leverage. Yeah, there is sometimes you can use somebody else, right? Sometimes you can use somebody, because sometimes it is difficult for you, but even these difficult people have another person that they can speak quite nicely. So sometimes you have to use skillful means, yeah, or you can have a chaperone, yeah. So you have a chaperone with you, or you find the right kind of environment. You have to just do like that. You have to find. So there are many skillful ways, because especially if it is somebody who's verbally abusive, irrational, and shouting, it's also not the right time. But if they're doing it all the time, maybe don't speak, maybe send it via email or by writing. So it's a little bit different way of communication. So yeah, so these are the difficult places. So this is again, okay, then this person, you have to sweeten them up, see whether then you can, take them out for dinner and, treat them nicely and get them in the right mood and see. So there are many things. Without knowing the situation, it's hard, but you have to be skillful and find and see. But if they're truly, then they have some kind of mental problem, really. I mean, anybody in their right mind are not completely always abusive, irrational, and shouting. If they're always like that, they certainly have some kind of condition. Then you have to have compassion, yeah, because then they are suffering, they can't help themselves. So then we have to sort of deal with it as if it is somebody who needs special treatment, and you communicate. But if it is a normal kind of person, then find a time when they are in a good mood and then communicate. That's my advice. Try. Okay. And there are some thank yous. On a side note, when people pass on in general, how long are they still around for? Very difficult question for to answer. They are around for as long as their attachment and your attachment is there, also their karma and so many things. So that's why it's really, really important to let the people go. Yeah, because if you hold on to them with your attachment, it becomes very difficult. And sometimes some people hang on for decades. And you can hear in near death experience stories, yeah, when people have had their near death experiences, some people they see their parents waiting. The parents have died, but their attachment to the child is so strong that they're waiting and waiting and not leaving. They are still minding, watching over the child or the grown up already, but waiting. Sometimes spouses, yeah, your loved ones, your partner, if the attachment is so strong, they hang around longer. So, this is really, if you really care about them, if you really love them, it is really important to let them go, to tell them, yeah, I will be okay, I will take care of myself. You move on to your next life, because that trapped place, the ghost realm, the spirit world, is not necessarily a very pleasant place, because they can't really do anything. They can't talk to you, you can't see them, but it's a place of attachment. So it is really important. So this is why you can love and care for people, but reducing that attachment is really important. So this is the whole Dhamma path. So this is why we practice this. So it is really, really important not to hold on to people and to learn how to let go. Yeah, so this is really, it's a big Dhamma topic. Maybe I can talk about that another time. I have spoken about that before. Okay, excellent. Looks like there was some good things. I got lots of comments. I think this is the talk that I got the most number of feedback and comments. Great. Thank you, everybody. We've gone way over time as well. Thank you so much.